The chamber of the Galactic Concordance was a symphony of arrogance, a glittering monument to 1,000 years of unquestioned supremacy. Ambassador Kulvor of the Vex Dominion, his chitinous plates polished to a mirror sheen, gestured with a dismissive claw at the holographic projection hovering above the central dais. It displayed a blue-green world, swirling with clouds. "You bring this curiosity before the Concordance?" Kulvor's voice, a series of clicks and rasps, was translated into smooth Galstan by the chamber's systems. A species barely out of its own atmosphere, clinging to chemical propulsion and kinetic weapons. They throw pieces of metal at each other. It is not war. It is tantrum. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembled delegates. The elegant avian Silirax preened their feathers in disdain. The hulking mineral-based Grand delegates emitted low, rumbling vibrations of amusement. The being who had brought the matter, a lower-tier envoy from the cautious Helios Federation, shifted nervously. Our long-range scans of their historical data nets, what they call the Internet, show a disturbing propensity for conflict. They have harnessed the power of the atom not just for energy, but for weapons of terrifying scale. Kulvor let out a sharp, derisive click. Atomic weapons? Crude area denial tools. A civilized species moves beyond such blunt instruments. We use plasma lances, gravitic shear beams, targeted antimatter bursts. Clean, precise, honorable. These humans, they are children playing with fire. They have labeled their own home a Deathworld. A poetic, if pathetic, admission of their own flawed nature. He manipulated the controls. The hologram zoomed in on grainy footage scavenged from human communication satellites, ancient tanks rolling across deserts, biplane dogfights, explosions in muddy trenches. Look at them. They evolved under a relentless gravity, poisoned their own atmosphere, survived cataclysms that would have wiped out a sensible species. They are not advanced. They are merely stubborn. The Helios envoy persisted, a note of fear in its translated voice. Their stubbornness is the concern. Our predictive models, when applied to their military history, from what they call Sun Tzu to their D-Day and Blitzkrieg, suggest a terrifying adaptive capacity. They do not fight fair. They ambush, they deceive, they utilize terrain and weather as weapons. They have a concept, total war. It means the mobilization of their entire societal and industrial output towards destruction. Silence fell for a moment. Then Kulvor laughed, a dry scraping sound. Total war, how melodramatic. Their industry is a fossil-fueled joke. Their fastest ship would take a generation to reach the nearest Concordance outpost. They are insects, annoying, perhaps, if one were to step on them, but insects nonetheless. He drew himself up to his full height, addressing the entire chamber. "I move that the species designated Homo sapiens of planet Earth, henceforth known as Sol 3, be issued a cease and desist order under Galactic Statute 7, Management of Pre-Core Species. They will dismantle their orbital platforms, submit their military assets for scrapping, and accept a Concordance governor. Their violent phase is over. We will bring them peace for their own good." The vote was not unanimous, but it was overwhelming. The Helios Federation abstained, a quiet protest lost in the tide of assent. A message was drafted, a masterpiece of condescension. It declared humanity a threat to its own stability and demanded unconditional compliance. The deadline was one standard galactic cycle. The message was beamed to Earth. The Concordance expected panic, pleading, perhaps a swift surrender. What they received 36 hours later was a 3-word transmission on the same frequency. Come and GTIT. Admiral Torvald Grimstad stood on the command bridge of the UNSS Warden, a converted asteroid. Fortress anchored at Lagrange Point 5. The fleet around him wasn't sleek, it was brutal. Geometric slabs of armor, festooned with railgun batteries and missile pods. No elegant energy shields glittered, just meters of layered tungsten, ceramic, and a new composite they called reactive regolith. Status of the solar net? His voice was gravel in a bucket, a product of 50 years of service and too much recycled air. All platforms report green, Admiral, replied Commander Chen, her fingers dancing across a holodeble. A web of light sprang up around the inner solar system. Passive sensors only. They'll see our orbital infrastructure, our primitive ships. They won't see the net. Grimstad nodded. The solar net was humanity's first best trick. Thousands of stealth-coated sensor buoys and automated weapon platforms disguised as debris, dormant comet nuclei, or just empty space, a product of human paranoia and ingenuity. He looked at the main display showing the inbound signature. The Vex Dominion Vanguard, a pacification fleet of 10 sleek, dagger-like vessels, moving at a significant fraction of light speed. They were making no attempt to hide. Why would they? All commands, "This is Solar Actual," Grimstad said, opening a fleet-wide channel. "Stand by on condition Zulu. Remember your training. They think they understand war. They understand duels. We understand slaughter. Let's educate them." On the bridge of the Vex flagship, Judicator's Light, Commander Vrax observed the human defensive array. His multifaceted eyes took in the blocky stations, the patrolling ships that used reaction mass for propulsion. So crude. Their energy signatures were laughably low. "We are being scanned by rudimentary radar and LiDAR systems," his sensor officer reported. "No tachyon-based detection, no energy shield harmonics. Primary weapons appear to be kinetic accelerators and chemical explosive projectiles." Vrax felt a surge of pity. It was like being challenged to a duel by a creature that had just discovered the sharpened stick. "Hail them. Transmit the cease and desist order once more. And add a reminder of the consequences of defiance." The hail was sent. The response was immediate, not from a commander, but from a distorted, chanting human voice across a wide spectrum. "Freedom of the seas, motherfucker," followed by a burst of archaic, pounding auditory noise, something called heavy metal. Vrax's mandibles clenched in irritation. "Barbarians. Target their largest station. A single plasma land strike. Sever it cleanly. Let them see the precision of our tools." The Judicator's Light hummed, energy gathering at its prow. A lance of star-hot plasma, capable of slicing through a planet's crust, lanced out across the void. It never connected. 100,000 kilometers short of the target, the plasma bolt struck an invisible field. It wasn't a shield in the Concordance sense. It didn't dissipate energy, it ate it. Sensors screamed as a cloud of micron-sized, magnetically charged particles, deployed hours earlier by stealth drones, absorbed and diffused the plasma energy into harmless radiation. "What was that?" Vrax demanded. "Unknown. Some form of particulate chaff, extremely effective against directed energy." Before he could process this, the space around his fleet came alive. From seemingly empty void, hatches slid open on camouflage platforms, not guns, launchers, massive kinetic launch signatures, thousands of them. "Projectiles are small, low-yield, non-nuclear," Vrax scoffed. "Point defense interceptors, eliminate them. The Vex point defense systems, designed to vaporize fast-moving missiles with laser clusters, swiveled to engage. They targeted the lead projectiles and found they were hollow, thin-walled spheres of aluminum. They vaporized easily, creating a brilliant, blinding cloud of metallic gas. The lasers, refracted and scattered, became useless. Behind the chaff shells came the real threat, tungsten rods. Fired from electromagnetic rails buried inside asteroids, they struck at a significant percentage of light speed. A Vex cruiser, the Chastiser, took a direct hit. Its energy shields flared brightly for a nanosecond, calibrated to deflect energy weapons, then collapsed under the sheer, unforgiving mass and velocity. The rod punched through the ship through and through, leaving a molten, perfectly cylindrical hole. Atmosphere, fluids, and bodies vomited into the vacuum. "Shields ineffective. They are bypassing our shields," the tactical officer shrieked. "Close the range, board them, send in the warrior forms," Vrax commanded, his confidence cracking. Hand to hand, the Vex were masters. Their exoskeletons could withstand energy blasts. Their claws could shred duralloy. Dropships, sleek and fast, descended toward Earth, aiming for the planet's major population centers. They expected to see panic, crumbling infrastructure. What they saw was a planet ready for a knife fight. Captain Anya Sharma of the 7th Mobile Infantry, the Dust Devils, watched the alien dropship scream into the atmosphere over the Sahara. Her command crawler, the Sandstorm, was buried under a thermal reflective tarp. Her platoon was scattered in hidden firing pits. "All elements hold for my mark," she whispered into her mic. The aliens were heading for Cairo, a obvious strategic target. They'd overfly this valley. Let them think we're hiding in the city, she thought. Let them think we fight for real estate, we fight for kills. The dropships, arrogant, flew low and fast. They didn't bother with terrain masking. Why would they? Sky sweeper teams, fire. From the rocky ridges, dozens of shoulder-launched missiles streaked upward, not seeking heat signatures. These were laser-guided riding beams painted by spotters on the ground. They hit the lead dropship in its engine nacelles. It didn't explode in a plasma fireball. It came apart as the shape-charged warheads sliced through its structure. It crashed into the desert in a dozen burning pieces. The other ships scattered, unleashing swarms of warrior forms. They landed on the sand, 8 feet tall, chitinous, armed with plasma casters. They moved with a predatory grace. Anya keyed her comms. Light them up. The desert erupted. Not from energy weapons, but from simple, devastating lines of tracer fire 50 caliber heavy machine guns, concealed in revetments, opened up. The tungsten carbide-tipped rounds, designed to pierce tank armor, shattered Vex exoskeletons. The aliens screamed, a sound of pure shock. Their carapaces were meant to dissipate heat, not stop high-velocity slugs. Anya saw one warrior form raise its plasma caster. A sniper's round, fired from a kilometer away, took it in the eye cluster, the only weak spot the human analysts had guessed at. It dropped. "They're not invincible," she yelled. "Keep firing, mortar teams, smoke and high explosive on my vector." The battle descended into a brutal close-range melee. The Vex fought with disciplined fury. The humans fought like feral animals. A Vex warrior charged a human fighting position, only to trip a buried claymore mine that sent 1,000 ball bearings through its legs. Another was blinded by a phosphorus grenade, then finished with a combat knife driven into its thoracic vent. They're stronger, faster, with better tech, Anya thought, ejecting a magazine and slamming a new one home. But they fight like they're in a tournament. We fight to make the other guy die for his planet. In orbit, the battle was turning. The human fleet, seemingly outmatched, was employing a tactic the Concordance had no name for, swarming. Small, agile, and suicidally brave gunships, little more than engines, armor, and a single railgun, darted in at close range, firing kinetic slugs at point blank into shield projectors and weapon emplacements. They died in droves, but for every 3 that died, a Vex cruiser was mission-killed. Vrax, on the bridge of the wounded Judicator's light, was in a state of dawning horror. His comms were jammed not by sophisticated scrambling, but by a barrage of chaotic noise. Terran music, screaming, historical war speeches, even animal sounds. His sensors were blinded by primitive but effective radar-jamming aircraft. His fleet was being dismantled by weapons his doctrine deemed obsolete. "Commander, a new vessel has emerged from behind their moon. It is massive. No energy weapons detected. On the screen, Vrax saw it. The UNSS Oblivion's sledgehammer. It was not a ship for subtlety. Its entire forward section was a single, massive coil. It was a railgun. A railgun the size of a skyscraper. "All power to forward shields," Vrax commanded. The Oblivion's sledgehammer fired. It didn't fire a tungsten rod. It fired a projectile the size of a small frigate made of degenerate matter scraped from a neutron star's crust. It moved. Space and time seemed to warp around it. It struck the Judicator's light. There was no explosion. The shield didn't even flare. The projectile, possessing unimaginable density, passed through the ship, through the planet Mars, and continued off into the void. The Judicator's light simply ceased to exist, its structure vaporized by the gravitational wake of the passing shot. Mars now had a new, perfectly smooth molten tunnel through its northern hemisphere. The silence on the human fleet channel was broken by Admiral Grimstad's voice. "That's for the dinosaurs, you arrogant pricks." The remaining Vex ships, leaderless and shattered, attempted to jump to FTL. Their drives failed. The human stealth net had one final trick. It had been slowly deploying a fine mist of superconductive carbon nanotubes across the battle zone. As the Vex drives spun up, they created a localized field. The nanotubes aligned, creating a temporary chaotic gravity well, a jump scrambler. It was a messy, unpredictable, and utterly human solution. Trapped, the Vex fleet was systematically destroyed. On Earth, the ground war was over. The surviving warrior forms, isolated and demoralized, were being mopped up. Captain Anya Sharma stood over a wounded Vex commander. It looked up at her, its clicks weak. "Why?" It buzzed through a damaged translator. "You had no chance. Why fight like animals?" Anya wiped blood and grime from her face. "You came to our home. You thought because we don't have pretty energy weapons, we weren't dangerous. You thought because we call our world a Deathworld, we were victims of it." She leaned down, her eyes cold. "We're not victims. We're the product. Every predator that ever stalked us, every virus that tried to kill us, every earthquake and tsunami that tried to wipe us out, they're all in our DNA. We didn't conquer our Deathworld, we married it. And you just threatened our kids." She stood up, nodding to a medic. "Patch it up, it's going home." The chamber of the Galactic Concordance was silent. The holographic display now showed the broken remnants of the Vex fleet, the new scar on Mars, and the human fleet, battered but victorious, regrouping around Earth. Ambassador Kulvor was gone, recalled in disgrace. In his place stood a tremulous Vex sub-emissary. The Helios envoy spoke, its voice quiet but carrying. "The human government has transmitted a message. It is not a surrender, it is a treaty, the Sol System Defense Protocol. It states that any uninvited entry into the heliopause of a human-claimed system will be considered an act of war, and that humanity reserves the right to respond with any and all means at its disposal." The envoy paused, letting the weight of the unsaid, the mention of their primitive world-killing atomic arsenals now likely mounted on interstellar missiles, hang in the air. "They have also sent a cultural data packet for our education." A new video played. It showed human soldiers, covered in mud and blood, helping wounded aliens. It showed engineers sharing schematics for atmospheric processors. It showed children offering water to captured warrior forms. Then it showed the battle again, the brutal, efficient killing. The final image was a human face, Admiral Grimstad's, scarred and weary. "You offered us peace through submission. We reject it. We offer you peace through mutual respect. Or, we offer you war. Choose wisely. Because we've been practicing war in the dark with every conceivable weapon for 10,000 years. You've just seen the opening chapter. The transmission ended. The silence was absolute. The human envoy to the Concordance, a petite woman named Dr. Eris Thorne, finally rose. She had been a xenobiologist a month ago. Now she was an ambassador from a species that had just declared war on the entire galactic neighborhood and won the first fight. She placed a simple data crystal on the dais. "This contains our proposed diplomatic accords. The terms are fair. But understand this," she said, her gentle voice hardening. "You looked at our weapons and saw primitivity. You looked at our history and saw savagery. You looked at our world and called it a death sentence." She swept her gaze across the stunned, fearful assembly. "You were wrong on all counts. You didn't see the ingenuity in the tool, the strategy in the conflict, the strength forged in the crucible. You mistook our cradle for our cage. Do not make that mistake again. We are humanity. We are from Earth. And we are not afraid of the dark." She turned and walked from the chamber, leaving a galaxy forever changed, staring at the simple crystal that held the new rules of existence. Rules written not in the language of superior technology, but in the indelible, unyielding spirit of a Deathworld's children. The war was over. The lesson had just begun.